All right, this is Brandon from Recording Review, and we're doing a fun interview thing here. And today we are stuck with Danny Danzi. How you doing, Danny?
Yo, Brandon, what's
Ah!
happening, brother?
It
Yo!
just knocks your head off. I love it.
Man, it's so great to talk to you after all this time. Thank you so much for doing this.
God, this feels like deja vu. I thought we've heard this before.
We might have.
All right, let me give a brief introduction on who Danny is, besides a freaking maniac, as you can already tell. Danny is an absolutely phenomenal guitar player, and he's been on the forum for years, and his engineering stuff is tip-top, too. And like the guitar stuff, you record a lot of good guitar players, and you hear, I don't know, they're pretty good. And then there's that next echelon, the tip-top, and Danny's that, just wow!
Well, thank you, man.
And so he's been on the forum here for a long time now, and well known for writing chapters on each post. But which is always, that's one last thing I want to say is, like, sometimes I get swamped with the forum and I'm like, well, I really can't check this today. And then if I saw like a post that Danny did, I'm like, well, I can fit one in there. So one of our most valued dudes. So anyway, welcome aboard, Danny.
Thank you very much, man. And real fast before you start, I want to apologize about the long post thing. I really try to explain myself to people because so much is lost in text. And I think that, when you're teaching something and you're talking about audio, it's nice to really explain yourself, give it full, a few examples, and just really kind of share as much as you can with people because they don't know. It's so misleading what they can read. So I'm a little thorough there because I just like to keep no stone unturned. Hopefully it helps for those that like to read. For those that don't, I'm sorry for boring you.
Well, I actually get a little competitive. I'm like, well, hell, I could have wrote a little longer. What was I doing?
Yeah, you got so many things going on. I mean, I do too, but between renders, I can just, and it's funny. I have a video that I'll share with you. When you hear me typing, it sounds like a machine gun. It's like, it's like relentless. It's like, dude, what's wrong with you? Are you like on speed?
I love it, dude.
Yeah, it sounds like a machine gun.
This may be the two most hyper dudes on the planet talking right now.
And I don't even drink coffee. I'm just high on life.
Oh, well. Try coffee. It'll give you another, mile per another horsepower. I don't know. All right, well, let's just start this bull crap here. I have a few really stupid questions, and
That's great.
yeah. So I mean, all right, here we go. And one of my goals is to never sound like I don't know. I see some interviews. I'm like, that's the stupidest guy ever. I want to punch him. And but I'm about to be that guy. So here we go.
Okay.
All right, multiple choice. Would you rather A, watch Nirvana die in a school bus fire, B, watch Nirvana ingest Zyklon B, or C, watch naked women solve problems?
I would probably have to go with C.
Why?
I actually, as much as I don't like Nirvana, I think they had their place and they did a lot of cool stuff, as far as for that generation. I mean, you don't inspire a generation and not respect that. As much as I don't like it, I never liked Cobain. I never liked his guitar playing. I never liked his singing. But when you look at the lyrics and those songs were the guy's life. And if you never walked in another man's shoes and like tried to live it, I think that it brings you a little closer to it when you do, and that's one thing that I did. I hated them. I used to bash them all the time. I would say stupid stuff like, yeah, and he said he didn't have a gun. Yeah, sure he did. Right.
That's pretty funny, but
yeah. And then I'd say, well, the guy had more money than God. He couldn't check into some kind of good rehab. I mean, he didn't have family around him, people that were pushing him. And then I'm thinking to myself, man, I have an addiction myself with work, or my biggest problem, Brandon, is smoking cigarettes. And I don't smoke a lot, but it's enough of a habit to where if I could check in somewhere, I would, man. I really would, because I can't quit. So imagine someone with a heroin addiction, and I guess everything to me just came to a head with Nirvana, where I said, you know what? I got to stop saying this stuff. Let me sit down and listen to the man. And I listened to everything that they did, and I actually wound up enjoying it more than I ever thought that I would. And I respect them. As much as I don't like some of it, I respect it. Anybody that can inspire a generation, man, I think I just gotta give him props where it's due. He's done better than I have. So,
well, there's something to saying, well, maybe I wouldn't buy it, but you guys have your fun.
Right. Yeah, and you know that's my thing. But yeah, the naked chicks thing, man, I think I'd definitely go for that because with music is art. You know, I try to accept everything as that art and try to get something good out of everything without totally bashing something. You know, I listen for blatant errors on things when I do help people with material. But for the most part, for me, I like to take a piece of that art. You know, especially I'm really into this rap kick now. Not that I'd write it, but because I work with so much of it, you know, I'm working with Wanye from Boys to Men doing pre-production. I mean,
Oh.
there's all kinds of people that I surround myself that are really good at this stuff. So when you hear the really good stuff, instead of the guys that come off the street that are, just trying to be wannabes, you really get a chance to live it differently. So that's where I am with, that kind of thing. I listen to something for what it is, not what I think it should be.
Well, and there's something too when you do this long enough where just even if you have one genre where you're most comfortable in, you start to really get a feel for this, the good things of every genre.
Exactly.
You
You
know, and
do.
I agree.
It's
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't even remember what I was going to say.
To me, it's like when you're playing guitar. You know how you might be on a kick with Symphony X for a while, and you try to steal some of Michael Romeo's licks, and then you'll go to something else. And I never try to cop anything exactly, but I take the good from everything, and it's the same thing that I do. With music, no matter what it is, whether it's gospel or something, Christian or heavy metal or whatever, there's something that I can take from everything, whether it's a tone or something like that, a snare drum sound, anything, a melody, something that just made me say, wow, that was very artistic, that was crafty, why didn't I think of that? So I'm a stealer. I'm what they call a crib and bastard. I'll steal whatever I can, and twist it around backwards. I mean, on one of the songs of my album, I used a piece of a Madonna song. I flipped. Yeah, I know that's terrible. I should impale myself for saying that, but I spun one of her pre-choruses backwards, and just like manipulated it, and it worked. I mean, what are you going to do? There's only 12 notes, so or 8, and they start repeating. I don't even know. I don't know any theory. I'm a dope. So, but that's my take on that.
Did you say you spun the pre-chorus backwards?
I did. I'll do that. I'll hear something that I think is cool, and I'll see what the chord structure is, and I'll either spin it backwards or I'll take one chord and drop it. And that's a good thing about Sonar. That not that I'm trying to push Sonar or anything, but they have this thing called the matrix view, where you can drop things in like in cells, like a Word document,
Yeah.
and you can just flip them around any way you want. Pieces of your songs or little loops or whatever, and you just move it to the next cell, and you can press one button and it'll form a song out of it, which is really cool. Yeah, so it's an awesome tool to do things like that for like chord structures or for example, I get ideas like every day, and some of them I'm not ready to write a song for, so I drop them in this little folder called the ideas folder. I can take a bunch of those ideas, drop them in the matrix, and then mess around with the placement and actually come up with a song. And I've done that many times.
Yeah, pretty cool.
It's a really cool tool. Yeah.
I want to add in regard to theft. Whenever I'm working with a band or writing songs or whatever, and we get into a bind, I always just steal a chord progression from the Lion King.
There you go.
For some reason, those work on every genre. It doesn't matter. You always, I don't know, it just works.
Yep. No, you're right. You're right. And it's all been done before. I mean, as much as we try to be different, it's, what can you do? It's going to happen as long as you're not, stealing things verbatim. I think it's all pretty acceptable,
The whole idea of being unique is a challenge, I guess. How many times do we find somebody that blows our mind with how unique they really are? It's tough.
You're right. And there's innovators, and then there's guys that just do what they do, and then there's guys that do what they do and they might not do it very well, but they're unique. And then that unique word, I think it's a little overused today. I think that we're settling for quantity instead of quality as far as the performances of people. But then again, not everybody has to be a god. Then everybody has to play like Yngwie Malmsteen to be accepted as a good guitar player. What was I watched last night? Mike Portnoy's new band, Adrenaline Mob, I think they're called. If you get a chance, check them out. Oh my God, the production was amazing. But their guitar player is, I think he's the guy from Disturbed or something.
What?
He's repetitive. He does, but he does some cool stuff. The singer's really good. The whole band's like smoking. Wait till you hear the production. It's like off the hook. But they do some neat things, and it's not that anybody's like phenomenal in the band other than Portnoy. You know, I mean, the
Right.
guitar player has like this Zakk Wylde type feel, and he does some neat things, and he uses that, you know, that whammy pedal, that wow, wow kind of thing, you know. And but it was really neat, and you know, I wouldn't compare them to Dream Theater, of course, but for what they're doing, it's great. And you know, that's my whole take on something. If somebody can do something and they are unique but do it in a good way, I think that's cool. It's when we just listen to something unique and go crazy about it that I have a problem with. You know, when somebody sucks, they suck. I mean, I don't care how unique they are. You know, Bob Dylan's a great songwriter. I hate his voice. I'm sorry, and people will kill me for saying that. You know, or Jimmy Page. The guy he played every lick known to man, but he's horrible live. He's always been horrible live. That to me, it loses all credibility with me. You know, I just can't. I can't like that as much as I try.
What about
you know?
a drunk Eddie Van Halen live?
Oh man, he's horrible too. And that was who my God was growing up.
Right.
You know, and you know, guitar God that is. But you know, I can't take any of that stuff, man. Somebody's got to always be on their game, and I try to do that. Like I won't record anything on my stuff that I can't pull off live. And if I do something that's a little strange in the studio, I'm going to learn it and I'm going to have it, you know, 98% there, you know, and pull it off. Because I think, you know, once you see somebody live, if they don't deliver the goods, what good is it?
Well,
you know,
yeah.
It's just totally loses credibility with me. So I try to make sure anything that I record, you're going to hear it. If there's samples, I got my keyboard player doing the samples or whatever, you know. So I'm just a stickler for that. If they can't pull it off live, anybody can sound good in the studio. I mean, you and I, we see that every day. We can bring kids in here that, you know, can't sing a lick, and we can auto-tune them or melodyne them, and the next thing you know, hey, man, I actually sound like a singer, dude, you know, and I don't know. I just, you got to kick my butt live, or I just want no parts of it.
Good. Question 2. Totally changed the subject here. Well, that was just one question. All kinds of awesome info in here already. This is awesome. Okay, yesterday, B. Holst, he was on the forum, and he was bitching. Not really bitching, I'm kind of making fun of him, but he was talking about that he was hoping with Bashless Recording and the Slate Digital Cup and things we got going on that he's similar to me, where he's kind of stuck in this, like, what I'm going to stupidly call like an upper-immediate realm of audio engineering, where your stuff doesn't suck, but there's definitely like this room to grow, and you have no idea really where to take it. And so I'm going to ask you, say, what are the big non-magical solutions for moving into Robo Pro land?
Well, I've, you know, kind of feel like I'm on the same plane with you guys, you know, believe it or not. I get a lot of people saying, oh, man, your production's so great. I think I'm, you know, in both of my studios, we're getting better than demo quality, I would say. I don't think we're quite major label, but we're enjoying what we're doing. We have a, you know, huge client base, and they're liking it. So we're doing something right. But to answer your question, I think a lot of that has to do with your monitoring environment, because without the things that I have, I wouldn't do it. You know, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't have the business that I have. I think a lot of that is making the right calls. If you can't hear the right stuff, it's just not going to happen. You know, like, for example, I'm working with IK Multimedia. You know, we're gonna be releasing ARC 2, and you know, I'm a huge supporter for the first ARC. And, you know, with ARC 2, there's going to be some really cool changes, you know, that I think are going to make a major difference from what I'm seeing already. But one of the things they made us do was they wanted us to do a mix without using ARC at all. And man, I tanked. I was horrible. I was like a fish out of water. I was bass heavy, you know, and it was just horrible. So little things like that can make a difference as far as improving your actual quality, like to compare it to a major label. It's a lot of it's in the mic placement. You know, it's in layering, it's in your panning, it's in creating that space that might not be there, using maybe a reverb and an impulse. And there's just so many things that need to be done. The best thing, I think, to grow there is to have someone that knows what they're talking about give you a consultation on the song and let you know what's going on. And I do a lot of that. I do about anywhere from 12 to 20 of those per week, you know, to help people out. And I'm not saying that to try to gain business, but I'm saying sometimes we don't know what to listen for. And when you have somebody that isn't as close to the material as you are, listening to it in a really good monitoring environment, they can pick up on things that you're not even thinking about, you know, where they might say, hey, you need to do this, that, this, and this. And, the person that's mixing is saying, wow, I never thought of that. I never even heard that. How are you hearing this stuff? And sometimes we need to be taught what to listen for. And, another major thing to improve things is how to use compression and what compressor to use. I can't stress how important that is. And the biggest problem there is people don't know when they're using the right amount of compression. And that's, when I teach, I do my online video lessons and stuff. I teach people, listen, the best compressor is the one that you're not hearing. It's you're really not supposed to hear it unless you're doing parallel compression or you're doing a side chaining thing or, whatever you're doing. But you want that to be nice and tight. And sometimes figuring out what that tightness is a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
So compression is definitely important as well as choosing the right one. And if you can't do that, or you're not sure how a compressor works the right way, you need to learn. You need to have somebody sit and tell you. And if I could share a real fast story with you.
Shoot.
I sound like I'm talking like I type. Man, who's calling me? I wish these people would leave me alone. I told everybody, listen, man, I got an interview tonight. Don't call me. Yo, all right, man, let's call Dan. Everyone at once. But anyway, years ago, and you might remember this, there was a series of videos that came out called the Doug Marks Metal Method. Do you remember him? The dude all dressed up with the, in the 80s garb.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Remember him? Brandon, he's a horrible guitar player. I hate to say it. Doug, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, man. You didn't help me there. But he looked the part. He takes these shots where the wind's blowing his hair back, and he's got this big rig of amps, and he's playing. And I said, wow, man, maybe this guy will be, pretty cool. Let me buy these videos. I bought them, and I was like, man, I can smoke this guy. And I don't mean that egotistically. He was like where I was in my third year of playing, and I was playing for about 12 years at the time. But anyway, the good thing about these videos, this guy Doug went through everything, and he explained effects. And when he explained effects, he showed you before and after. So when he got to the compression part of it, he says, this is what something sounds like, without a compressor on it. And he explained, now you hear the peaks, you hear how I'm playing this, it's jumping out at me. Now watch what happens when I add this compressor. And he showed you before and after. And he said, and these are the settings that I'm using, and this ratio would be for this, and this threshold does this, and this attack time is going to do this. And then he says, now here's what happens when we over apply it. So the guy was actually showing you and teaching you what to listen for. For me, it was totally worth the price of that entire video library just for that video. So I think a major part of learning this stuff is having somebody that is somebody or somebody that knows teach you what to listen for, what's going on. Why is my bass guitar and my kick drum not doing that? How do I get sounds bigger? Or why is this walking on top of here? How do I prevent masking? All these things walk hand in hand, and that's what you don't hear on the big major recordings that we love.
Right.
So, that would be my best advice, and a lot of people are saying mic captures in rooms. I don't totally agree with that. I think that your mic captures can actually create your sound. I think you can create size with microphones. But I mean, listen to some of this DI stuff we have today, man, with speaker simulation and impulses. I mean, there's people who are recording albums every day that if they told you they mic'd it and they didn't, you would believe them. I mean, it's so realistic today. And a lot of things are close room sounding, are close mic sounding. You're not hearing big rooms anymore. It's not there, man. Especially in the stuff you and I listen to. It's all in your face and direct.
Mm-hmm.
It's the rooms. I don't think play as much as a role as people are leading them to believe. Or you'll take a drum kit. Every drum kit today I can't even talk, in a major studio is usually mic'd up with triggers as a safety net. Every single one of them, man. Every place I go. I work in some really big studios on the side, and even our drum kit. We have, the MIDI rig ready to go because that safety net is important. Everybody's hybrid in samples. Everybody. You do it. I do it. So
I've never done it. I've never
done it.
No, man. I don't.
You're kidding. Yeah, I know you do it. But they're using Beat Detective or Drumagog or Steven Slade or whatever they can get their hands on, and it's making a difference. Nobody's, like the jazz guys might be using a real kit today, but no one is letting a full drum kit just go on their stuff. There's always some kind of sample. There's always some kind of safety net. There's so many things that go in there. Between the parallel compression, added rooms. Somebody might take a drum kit and throw it in a room and record that sound with major room plus the close mics and mix it together with a completely different kit. I mean, it's crazy the things that they're doing, and man, the list goes on and on. But getting back, I think you have somebody that knows what they're doing, tell you what's going on, and I think that can improve your recordings tenfold.
I dig it. All right, keep it on. You're just going like a jet, when it's
like I'm typing on the board. Yeah, this guy's the exact same way as I thought he was, a complete asshole that never shuts up. Dude knows everything, man. And I really don't. I'm really a dope, man. I just sit here and do things until they sound right, and sometimes they only just sound right to me and nobody else. And that's cool, man. That's what it's all about,
What are your thoughts on high-end toys, just in general, expensive gear versus cheap stuff?
I think it's in the ears of the beholder, to be honest. I've had all the pricey stuff. I still have a few pieces today. I really don't think it makes that much of a difference. Each thing might give you a 2% improvement, and the more of that good stuff you have, of course, that 2% is going to be 5, 10, 15. You might get a 35% improvement. Then again, is that 35% improvement something everyone else can hear? Mm-hmm. That's the other side of the coin, where I think you've shown and others have shown on your site that, sometimes we don't pick the high-end gear because we can't tell. And, those that say they can tell, I don't believe them, man. I really don't. I hate to say that. I know there are some people that have golden ears, but, if there's something that you have to listen to more than 3 times to hear that there's a difference, it's not enough of a difference to really squawk about, in my opinion. 3 times I listen to something. I'm not going to sit there and try to, am I hearing, oh yeah, this one has a little bit more 120 hertz going on here. And, oh yeah, this one definitely has more 5K. I'm not going to sit there and do that because it's stupid. I can achieve that same thing, by adding an EQ or something. For example, if I use a Realtek sound card and give you a mix of something and then do that same mix, and recording using like my RME, Fireface 800 or my Layla or whatever I got, there's going to be a little bit of a difference, but I can compensate for that difference easily. I could mask it. Or some guy says, well, here's this guitar sound or this mix that I did all analog. I know you can't do this in digital. You give me that puppy. I'll make it sound so close that nobody will be able to tell. I mean, the tools we have today are amazing. The analog sound, the only thing we gain there on most things is whatever saturation you can get that's natural, or with the outboard gear. You're going to get a little tube saturation that they don't quite have down yet. I still think we can come so close that doesn't matter. We're splitting hairs to the point where people are actually using this as marketing. And I just think it's wrong. I can give you, like I said, and I would do this. I've done it before. I can give somebody a mix that I've done completely from start to finish, recording to mix to master on a Realtek sound card that I had only 2 inputs to use, at a time. Mm-hmm. And nobody's going to know. They're not going to know that I didn't do it in my big studio. I say, here, I did this at my house. I'm in a 12 by 12 room at my house. That's my little man cave. I have nothing special here, and this is what I did. And they're going to, they'll be like, dude, you got to be kidding me. And not that it'll be great or major label quality, but it would be good enough to where somebody would say, man, I wish I had that quality. It's going to give you that impact. Mm-hmm. It's going to, it's going to make you know that, wow, all right, this guy definitely knows what he's doing, because there's no way I can get that. I have this big studio, and you've heard it. How many guys have big studios and they have all this gear and they're not getting good sound at all? Mm-hmm. So I think it's definitely in the ears of the beholder. I think that hardware is I definitely think it's overrated. And I can say that because I've used it, I've had it, I've sold it, and now I'm completely ITB. And I think my stuff is better now. Plus you have, of course, all the saves and all the automation. Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about your gear and patch bays. And, I do use a few little things. I like to use compressors going in. I still have a drummer. I have a Manley ELOP. I still have a few things, but without them, I don't really need them. They're not necessities. They're just a flavor. That I like to use to condition my signal going in. I think that's very important. I don't think anybody should just go straight into a sound card and record. I think you need a little bit of conditioning just to make the signal as good as it can be going in without totally destructively killing it.
Mhm.
just a little bit of something on your compressor, just to keep everything, little peaks and valleys under control, without listening back and saying, oh wow, I can hear that compressor pump in there. Yeah, that's definitely not cool. So that's my take on it. I don't think any of it is really super necessity. And the more high end it is, I don't know. I'm just not. I mean, what's better than a drum or tube compressor? I mean, I bought state of the art. It's one of the best units you can buy, and it didn't blow me away. It's good. It's different. I can get the same results. Like Paul and I, Paul Smith, we both
Paul
have this.
Paul 99, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Him and I have this fetish with these old Behringer compressors that we didn't even want to admit to people that we use, but they're awesome for conditioning a signal just to go to disk. So I'm at maybe minus 6 dB, minus 10 dB, going in. They're beautiful for that. And people laugh at us when they see that we use them or that we have them, but they sound great. And in my opinion, if something sounds good, it is good. I don't care what I'm using to get from A to B, and I think that's really important. Your ears and your technical ability definitely have to show. I mean, you put like Michael Wagner or one of those guys, on a computer with a Realtek sound card, give him like a mixing board so he can route all this, all the stuff in. Once he gets ITB, it's still going to sound like Michael Wagner no
Mhm.
matter what you do. And I think it's the same with everyone if they take that approach. But that's just my opinion.
I think a mistake that like I kind of fell into when I was early in this gig, 10, 11 years ago. All the hype you read on some of this gear, it almost implies like a compressor or a preamp or a mic or whatever is going to do all the work.
Exactly.
And then you kind of mentioned there, like with all the crazy stuff that's going on with, let's say, drum sounds a minute ago, and you're talking about different rooms for this and cymbals here, and just crazy samples. All this wild stuff's going on in the midst of all that. So these tools are just going to kind of, well, they're not going to get you there by themselves, like in a vacuum.
Right, right, right. That's exactly right. And I did. I always wanted to share this on your site, and maybe I will sometime if you allow it. But I'm very good friends with Bo Hill, the guy that produced Rat and Winger
Awesome.
and Warrant and Dweezil Zappa and Alice Cooper. A very, very good friend of mine that I talk to frequently. I haven't talked to him in a while now, but we were talking a lot, and I picked his brain. I actually asked him if I can do an interview with him. I mean, there's a guy that's got over 90 million sales under his belt, so he must know something. And to me, Bo Hill was one of the greatest guitar producers, of the 80s. I mean, everybody that had a killer guitar sound, that I grew up with, he was the one that did it. Warren D. Martini from Rat, killer guitar tone. Red Beach from Winger. The guys from Warrant, Dweezil Zappa, Key Marcello from Europe. I know these are all, 80s names that maybe some of your younger guys never heard of. But I mean, these were the guys that I grew up on. But one thing I asked Bo is, I said, Bo, these major labels, one thing that I noticed that they get that we're not getting are like sound sizes. How is a sound so big? I can get any snare sample that I have. It's only going to sound so big no matter what I do. Yet I listen to something else and it sounds like the sound itself has a size that we are just not capable of doing. How are they doing that, man? It's got to be in the mic pre's that they're using, right? I figured there's got to be some magic gizmo that gives us size. And he says, no. He says, you don't even need a mic preamp. I said, thank you so much for saying that. I said, because I've been trying to tell people that, for the longest time. He says, listen, if you get a good sound and you're getting the right amount of dB going in and you're happy with the sound, you don't really need a dedicated mic pre. Like I told him, I said, I'll use like a Mackie board, or I have a Tascam DM4800. The pre's on that are really good, but I never really drive them hard, so I don't think I'm really sculpting a sound with that. I'm just getting them up to line level, and he said, and that's correct. He said, these gizmos that we use, they add color, not sound size. He said, the sound size comes from all the microphones you use, or, the samples that you use. And he was just going on saying that it's not this big art that everybody thinks it is. And in some ways it can be. You can put a bunch of mics and you can mic the room all over, and you can mix all the sounds together. Sure, that's going to give you size. But, getting back to what you said, there is no magical device that just makes everything sound great. It's just not going to happen.
Awesome. All right, keep it on going here. Can you get great drum sounds in a 10 by 12 by 9 room? No samples. Can it be done?
I believe it can be. I have a close dimension for that, and I can actually share the work with you. I have a 12 by 12 that I did, and I was on another forum, and someone had asked me, or someone was talking about, yeah, you need all these great mics and these great mic pre's. And I said, dude, I'll mic my old 1977 Pearl fiberglass drum kit up with 57s, EV 457s, EV 357s, and I'll make it sound good. It's if you know what you're doing and you get it right, yes, you can definitely get it going. And I did it, and the guy couldn't believe me. He thought I was lying. I had to actually export all the drums out so he could hear them, and actually check it out. So yeah, it can be done. You just have to experiment and get things going the right way. And yeah, a buddy of mine, Rick D. I think he has a room kind of sort of like that. He's on your site too.
Mm-hmm.
Really good friend of mine. And he's been experimenting with drum sounds. And the first time that he did it, he was really sick. He just wanted out, man. And we talked about it, and I shared some info with him, and he did some experimenting. He's got a great sound in this little room, and it might even be smaller than the dimensions that you were talking about, and it has like weird reflections and stuff. But he found a way to tame all that. So I think you can get a sound in any room. I've never been in a situation where the room actually affected my recording ever. I can honestly say that. I've been in some real crap holes. I've been in storage areas. At one time I worked at this really huge studio in Philly, and they overbooked the room, and I had a band that was booked. So what they did was they set up one of these little storage rooms that they had, and it was a horrible room. We got one of the best recordings ever. They actually converted it into a room because it sounded so good. So I think you make do with what you can, and you just experiment until you get it right. And it's going to work out if you know what you're doing. And once the capture is there, you always have your gates that you can control stuff. You always manipulate your EQs or compress things the right way, and it's going to come out. It might not, you might do better in another room than in the room that you're, in currently. But I've never had a problem, Brandon, all my years. And I like that challenge. I come with my ARC and my laptop. I do the room so it flattens the monitors, and I'm usually fine.
Ah, pretty cool. Okay. All right, moving on. Is there one possession you couldn't live without in your recording arsenal? What would it be?
ARC.
Ah.
Yep. I can't even explain how incredible that little plugin was for me. The only thing I can tell you is I would not be in business without it. I was ready to get out of it, just keep my studio as a pre-production studio, my little man cave. And I would have never been where I am today. That thing changed my whole world. That's all I can say. And anybody that hasn't tried it or is skeptical, definitely try it. I don't work for the company. I beta test a little bit, but that is plug-in of my life, believe it or not, because without it, I'll mix decent stuff, sure. But as soon as that thing goes on, I hear everything I'm supposed to hear. When I think when guys are mixing, they do a lot of compensating. They'll listen to something, and they know when they do a certain thing that's too much bass in a mix. But they're still compensating. They don't really hear it yet. Or they'll go out to the car and they're listening and they're taking notes. Oh yeah, we got too much bass going on here, or this is wrong. And they come in and they listen to it and they don't hear what they heard in their car. So they're just, they're looking at numbers and trying to compensate. That is not the way to mix. If you can't sit down and mix what your ears are hearing without, second guessing, you're doing things wrong. It's not supposed to work that way. You sit in your chair, you fire things up. What you hear and what you tweak is what you should be getting. Period. There should be no, I got to get used to these monitors. No, man, what you hear should be what you hear. And if it's not, you need to find out, what's causing that and fix it, because you're never going to have fun. You're never going to enjoy this field. And that's what I tell people. You work all day at your day job. You come home. You can't wait to get to the studio. You work on a tune for 6 hours or longer. You go to bring that CD in the car, for the drive to work, and you throw it out the window because it sounds terrible.
Oh, yeah.
And it really makes you sick after a while. And I dealt with that for 10 years or longer, So having that sound to where everything sounds right, that's definitely where you want to be. And without ARC, yeah, you could take everything away from me. And it wouldn't bother me. You take ARC out, I'm done.
So you're saying I should give that another shot?
I would. And I'll tell you what, let me share. I write for this online magazine called Woosick.
I saw that on your website. Yeah.
Yeah, and just wrote a huge article about ARC, and I tell you actually how to do it. I go through the entire procedure. So if you did it the way I did it and you still failed, then it's probably not for you. You're one of the, percentage of guys that it's probably not going to work for. Everyone else that has done what I've told them to do to the numbers is completely happy with it. I think there's maybe 2 guys that tried it and failed. But I've sold more units for that company than their salesmen have. That was what one of the reps told me. They actually offered me a job at IK, and I'll send it to you after we're done here. In case you decide to try it again, you'll have all these, little tricks that I use to do it. And it's a little entailed, but if you do it right, it should work for you. And if it doesn't, like I said, you're just in that percentage where it's just not right for you. And that kind of sucks, because I don't want to see anybody buy something because I'm plugging it. But honest to God, Brandon, I would be like a fish out of water without that. And I use it on everything. The only thing it failed on was my NS10s. When I didn't run a sub through them. Straight NS10s, it failed. It couldn't do anything to save them. But as soon as I ran the sub, it was perfect. Every set of monitors I've ever done, with sub or without, is absolutely perfect, but the NS10s.
Interesting. Now, if you got 2 different monitor sets that, sets of monitors, a little bit ARC, do they pretty much sound identical, would you say?
Yes. Yep. They are just about identical. And what I have to do is, I have a little Samson C control. I'll just press a button and switch to the monitors. And when I'm doing that, I'm switching the ARC correction as well. I usually run anywhere from 2 to 3 instances of ARC on an individual bus. So all I have to do is send my master bus to that, corrected speaker version of ARC, and then just push the correct monitor button, and they sound identical. I mean, you can hear the characteristics of an NS10 or my Genel X or my Atom A7s, but the sound is exactly the same. Like, you won't listen to another set of monitors and say, all right, now that guitar sounds completely different, or this mix sounds completely different. The mixes sound almost identical with, of course, the qualities of each, different monitor.
Very cool. Okay, I'll be checking that out again. I still have it. I seem to screw it up every time I try to get it to work. I'll follow your advice here.
Yeah, it takes about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. You got to tape your floor, write up all your numbers, and everything has to be moved symmetrically. There's a few other setup things that I'll share with you that maybe you didn't try. We'll sort it out. I'll just send you, the whole thing. And if you decide to try it, cool. If you need me for anything, just let me know.
Awesome. Okay, number whatever.